Members. Good afternoon, members. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting of the panel on development. Agenda item number 1, information papers issued since last meeting. Since last meeting, the Secretariat has not issued any information papers. Agenda item number 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer to CB-1266/2025-01, the list of outstanding items for discussion, and CB-1266/2025-02, the list of follow-up actions. The next meeting is scheduled for the 25th of March 2025, Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. The administration proposed to discuss the following 3 items. 1. The creation of 2 permanent judicial posts to cope with the increase in workload at Lands Tribunal. 2. Funding application in relation to the replacement of the land information system of the Lands Department. 3. Staff proposal on the establishment of the Civil Engineering and Development Department. Do members agree to discuss these 3 items at the next meeting? I believe members agree. There is no objection, so we'll discuss these 3 items. Agenda item number 3, funding applications for Yuen South New Development Area NDA and Shui Effluent Polishing Plant. The relevant papers are listed on the agenda. Let's invite the administration to join us. As this agenda item involves a funding proposal, members, please refer to Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure if members would like to speak in relation to a topic in discussion in which he or she has a pecuniary interest, whether direct or indirect. Please disclose the nature of the relevant interest before you speak. We have Mr. Edward Lau, Ms. Chen Yut Ming, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Holden Chow, Dr. Wendy Hong, and Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. 6 members have pressed the button. Welcome, the administration. Thank you for coming to the meeting to answer members' questions. 2 more members have pressed the button, Mr. Perry Yu and Mrs. Regina Ip. There is a PowerPoint presentation. I'll give the floor to the Permanent Secretary to take us through the PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. This funding proposal concerns 2 projects. 1. Yuen South NDA, New Development Area. In relation to the second phase development, we are briefing members on the fund application, some 71 hectares of the development area, and for some infrastructural works. There will also be road works, including widening works. The funding sought is about $14 billion. The other project is in close proximity to Yuen South NDA as well. It is in Shui. We are applying for funding to build the Shui Effluent Polishing Plant to handle the sewage treatment in Shui and the other NDAs nearby. The funding involved is $6.6 billion. I'll now give the floor to the CEDD to take members through the funding application. The Drainage Services Department, DSD, will then brief members on the funding proposal in relation to the effluent polishing plant. Mr. Chen from the CEDD will take us through the first funding proposal. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin Chen. These 2 items are in the western part of the Northern Metropolis. I'll now first talk about the Yuen South NDA project. As you can see on the screen, Yuen South NDA is in the southern extension of Yuen. It is mainly a residential green community. It provides public housing in the long term and in the mid-term for Hong Kong. There will also be land for logistics use. In Yuen South NDA, there are a total of 3 phases. As you can see, the part highlighted in pink is the first phase. The work started in August 2022, and the blue one is the funding proposal we're talking about right now, whereas the third phase is the remaining one. It covers 71 hectares of development area. It provides a total of 11,450 public housing units. They can accommodate 38,500 people altogether. And the pieces of land are for industrial and commercial land use. We are going to form 71 hectares of developable land to provide public housing, logistics and storage, education facilities, GIC, electricity substation, and village reside area. In order to align with the second phase of Yuen South, as well as the transport needs in the nearby areas, there will be roadworks as long as 18 kilometers. There will also be junction improvement works, a cycle track of 10 km, sidewalks, footbridge cum elevated cycle track, vehicular bridges, as well as 2 PTI public transport interchanges. They improve the road connections in the area, and we'll give you more details in the following 2 slides. When phases 1 and 2 of Yuen South have completed, Yuen South vehicles can take T1 and T2, which have been widened, to the next area. There will be direct access to Yuen Long Highway without having to bypassing Kong Am Road, Kiu Hing Road, and Chap Pa Hung Road in Yuen Long town. That will alleviate the pressure on traffic. And Road D1, D2, and L20 will create an efficient east-west passage within the NDA. In order to alleviate the traffic pressure on and provide convenience in Chap Pa Hung PTI, we will widen the relevant roads in the nearby areas. There will also be public transport facilities that will lead to the new PTI constructed, and that will be an extension area of Yuen Long MTR station. This will effectively connect the NDA to the railway network. For the second phase, other infrastructures are covered, including the drainage system, sewage system, water supply system, and river revitalization works. There will also be landscaping works. Through revitalizing NOLA, say Yuen Long NOLA and Yuen Long West NOLA, we will use the flood prevention tank and the flood retention pond to enhance our resilience against extreme weather. This way, we can improve our flood prevention capability and adjust the water flow in Yuen Long NOLA. We will create blue and green landscape. We will also enhance the green mobility experience, and as a result, we can also create a livable and green living space. And we will also construct sewage pumping station and reclaimed water service reservoir. This way, we can improve recycled water management. At the same time, we have already finished the assessment of our design works. We managed to minimize costs of the construction involved in this project. We will use a rectangular tunnel boring machine, which is a well-established technology in the mainland. We'll use it to build tunnels in the area. We will also use MIC modular integrated construction and multi-trade integrated mechanical, electrical, and plumbing construction methods. Besides, we will also be making use of precast and prefabrication units. Digital technology for site monitoring and supervision will also be applied in order to minimize cost and time. We estimate with the technologies I mentioned above, the project cost will total $40 billion plus. In relation to the implementation timetable, we have already started the land resumption procedures involved in the Phase 2 development. We plan to start the Phase 2 construction work starting from the middle of 2025. Our target is to provide formed land starting from the end of 2027. In around 2032, we will complete the works. I'll now give the floor to the DSD to take members through the Shui Effluent polishing plan. DSD, Mr. Che, thank you. I'm going to take members through Shui Effluent polishing plan 4428DS. With the population intake of Shui Hachun NDA, the sewage treatment demand will surge. In order to cater for this demand, we will build the new Shui effluent polishing plant. The site will be far away from the residential areas. Going from east to west, it will be connected with a main. Microorganisms will be used to purify water. Purified water will be discharged to the through the Northwest New Territory sewage tunnel to the Ormston Road at the Northwestern Water Control Zone. The purified water or the silt will be handled afterwards, being transported away from the area. Phase 1 works include the construction of all the civil structures of the Shui effluent polishing plant and that of the electrical and mechanical facilities to provide a sewage treatment capacity of 60,000 cubic meters per day. Having regard to the sewage treatment projections, we will start the Phase 2. We'll start the Phase 2 works in order to raise the sewage treatment capacity from 60,000 to 90,000. We have actively used innovative construction technologies in order to reduce costs and to enhance efficiency. We will use the existing foundation of a water treatment facility to lower the cost of the tender. We will also be using a pipe bridge to replace traditional underground pipe. In addition, we will also use high steel construction bridges, which is stronger and lighter at the same time. This will alleviate or ease the pressure on the structure and then this will save costs. In the project, we will use innovative technologies, and we use the advanced technologies to make good use of land resources. For example, the technologies are different from those we used in the past, and we will also use the aerobic granular sludge. This is a new technology. This will be more efficient, and the area of site required will also be less. We will put in place digital construction management, including building information modeling, digital project supervision system, 4S, and project data management system. All these help us enhance the safety of the construction site. We'll also be using highly efficient construction methods, say the MIMEP, that is the multi-trade integrated mechanical, electrical, and plumbing construction methods. Starting from the second quarter of this year, we will consult the Public Works Subcommittee. Afterwards, we will seek funding approval from the Finance Committee. We expect to start the works in the third quarter of 2025, and it will take around 6 years for the works to be completed in order to align with the development schedule of Hongshui-Q NDA. In relation to the construction costs, money of the debt prices, we need a total of $6.695 billion. And that is my introduction for Hongshui-Q Effluent Polishing Plant.
Thank you. There are 9 members who have pressed the button. After the 8th member, Mrs. Regina Ip, we also have Mr. Tony Chair, the 9th member to speak. Each member will have 4 minutes, including question and answer. Please observe the time limit because we have another agenda item today. First, Mr. Lau Kwok-fan. Thank you. I am a consultant to the China Bridge Limited. Well, I support the funding applications because we are now trying to resume land for Northern Metropolis and construct, say, for Hongshui-Q and Yunnan South. The plans for these places are already here before we construct the Northern Metropolis. But with the NM, should we review our plans for these 2 districts? We have cement factories in these 2 areas to supply relevant materials for the construction of the Northern Metropolis. And they are going to be relocated to the multi-story building for modern industries. For the lot in Qingyi, the tender situation was not good. I know that by the end of March this year, what will be the response for the MSB in Yunnan South? What happens if the response is not good? Should we review the land allocated for MSB? Cement factories need a place to operate. Are we able to change the land use for sites allocated for MSB? After site formation, the land may be left idle because the market may not need it. I think that you have to pay attention to it. Now, second, on the effluent polishing plant in Hongshui-Q, but in Chimpat now there is also polishing plant, and it's in Cavern. Should we consolidate these 2 plants? Thank you. Permanent Secretary. The director will take the second question. Regarding your first question, I agree with your comment. When we do planning, we have to be dynamic. You talked about Hongshui Q. Its OZP was drafted a few years ago. We must continue to review it to make sure that the land use accommodate the developmental needs of Hong Kong. When we look at the Yunnan South New Development Area, its positioning as a residential area. We have some industrial sites, but those sites will be for industries with no pollution or minimal pollution. You talked about cement factories, but if we look at the positioning of the Yunnan South NDA, it's not appropriate for us to relocate the cement factory there. In Hongshui Q, we do have an appropriate site for such a factory, and we have set aside lots there. Mr. Mok. Please turn on his microphone. Thank you. I thank Mr. Lau for his support. In some way, sewage treatment works and Hongshui Q effluent polishing plant. Well, next to these two plants and works, we are going to build new sewage treatment works at Lau Fao Shan and Pak Nai, as well as Chin Pei Chui. At Lau Fao Shan, Chin Pei Chui, and Pak Nai, we are conducting technical studies. We can review the site selection, but for the site near Hongshui Q effluent polishing plant, they are planned for logistics uses. Any follow-up question? A quick follow-up question. I'm not asking you to keep cement factories here forever, but when you resume the land, you just don't have to build the MSB right away. You can relocate it after the population intake in Yunnan South NDA. Thank you. Next, Ms. Chen Yuming. Thank you. I have 3 questions regarding the Yunnan South NDA. First, it is said that the population intake will take place in 2030, and for Hongshui Q Ha-Chun NDA, the population intake will take place also in 2032. But the tender will not be out until the end of this year. I wonder if we have enough land to construct housing. And I wonder if the Tuen Ma line can accommodate the population intake. Well, 11,000 public rental housing units are involved, and many grassroots residents will move in. By 2030, how many jobs opportunities do we have in Hongshui Q, Yunnan, and Yunnan South? If there are a lot of residents in Yunnan South that need to commute to the Hong Kong island, how can we resolve the pressure on Tuen Ma line? It is said that there is a village resite area in the PowerPoint slide, and it is said that there is a freezing survey, and it has been recorded that there were 200 households. And by the 3rd quarter this year, they have to move out. Can these people move to the rehousing estate, or do they have to move to temporary housing? Secretary. Permanent Secretary. Thank you. The member have 2 questions. She asked, when we have population intake, can we make sure that there are enough jobs for people to work in the same district? Perhaps we supplement after the meeting. By 2030 in Hongshui Q, how many new job opportunities are you going to have? We talked about the tender by the end of this year for certain land parcels, but actually in Hongshui Q we have several MSBs and the tenders are underway. Hopefully, by 2030, we will have these MSB constructed. The types of jobs that these MSB offer will be suitable for grassroots residents. So if we look at Hongshui by 2030, apart from MSBs, we also have other industrial sites that would have already been disposed, and by then we will have more new job opportunities. We will supplement with exact figures after the meeting. You said that the Yunnan South NDA will affect the existing residents. Well, actually, in Hongshui, we already have a dedicated rehousing estate. The population intake took place last year. For the rental ones, the population intake will take place next month. So for households that are affected by the NDA, if they fulfill the eligibility criteria for a non-means test EGA, then they could choose the dedicated rehousing estate in Hongshui. Thank you. I see that there is a cycle track and vehicular bridges. I'd like to talk about the reality of cycle bridges in new territories. Usually, cyclists don't like to use these bridges and they choose to cycle on the road at grade. And the cost for constructing these vehicular bridges are rather high. So I wonder how you can lower the cost and increase the usage rate for the elevated cycle tracks. Thank you. For Yunnan South, we're going to build a footbridge cum elevated cycle track that span across the Shui Rest interchange. Currently, we don't have a bridge to connect the east and west of the Shui. As mentioned, most of the cycle track are at grade, but for the tracks near the highway, we need a bridge to connect the two cycle tracks on both sides. Mr. Andrew Lam, I'd like to ask about the effluent polishing plant. It's not the first time that we use a compact polishing plant. What is the cost or the cost effectiveness of the compact effluent polishing technology? How does it compare with the traditional technology? Second, on recycled water, I completely support it, but in the enclosures, I saw two images, and I see that the sewage treatment works and the reclaimed water reservoirs are rather far away. I wonder how the pipes are being laid. Thank you. Mr. Mok Wing Chun, Director of Drainage Services, please. Thank you. Let me first talk about the cost of operation and construction. For the new Hongshui effluent polishing plant, the cost for repair and maintenance is $6 to $7 per cubic meter. Regarding the secondary plus treatment that we use currently, well, actually, the new effluent polishing plant adopt a secondary plus treatment level, which is higher than our current effluent polishing plants. When we talk about secondary treatment level, it costs about $4 per cubic meter. Secondary plus treatment level, $6 to $7 per cubic meter. You ask if the cost for maintenance and repair of a compact effluent polishing plant would be higher. Well, actually, there won't be much difference. But the cost would be higher if we increase the treatment level to secondary plus. Now, on the point about recycled water or reclaimed water, The effluent polishing plant will treat the water, and the treated effluent will be discharged to the Urmston Road at the Northwestern Water Control Zone. At Yunlong South, they will have their own treatment works. They will collect the water and discharge it for flushing purposes.
Thank you. I have a follow-up. The service reservoir is placed next to the plant. If we do so, will it be even more efficient? Will it require less input? What were your considerations in the layout or the locations of the plants? Thank you. As I mentioned, the effluent polishing plant in Yunlong South will be handled and will be turned into reclaimed water. Then the service reservoir will provide water to Hongshui and Yunlong South. For the Hongshui effluent polishing plant, it will be discharged to Armstrong to the Armstrong Channel. Do you mean they aren't directly correlated? Yes, that is correct. Well, the second question is about the reclaimed water plant in Yunlong South. So probably we need to ask Mr. Chen. Thank you, member, for your question regarding the reclaimed water surface reservoir in Yunlong South. The facility will hold the water, and then it will be provided to the nearby residential areas. It will be placed near the residential areas. We need to make it close enough to the residential area in Yunlong South, so it will not be close to Yunlong South water treatment facility. It needs to handle effluent and odor generated from the effluent. Thank you. I'd like to confirm. Can I take it that for the Hongshui effluent polishing plant, eventually it will be provided to Armstrong Road? Is that correct? Yes. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the development of Yunlong South, it's been in discussion for some time. I'd like to focus on brownfield site operations. According to the paper, there are some 116 brownfield site operators. In the paper, it mentions 66 operators have already received assistance. As I remember, in panel on development or on other occasions, some stakeholders mentioned that in the case of relocation to other MSB in the future, some stakeholders are in favor of this, whereas some are against it. Some brownfield sites require open-air space, and the building ceiling or the floor ceiling impose restrictions and make it not possible for them to carry out the relevant brownfield operations. Based on your assessment, are there any open-air brownfield site operators who cannot be removed or relocated to MSB in the future? Then you will have to come up with other ways to relocate these brownfield site operators. I'm not sure if you have the latest information. $14 billion for Yunlong South area. There is no breakdown as yet. Say land site formation, construction of buildings, handling of associated buildings in relation to brownfield site operators, I don't see any breakdown in your paper. Probably you don't have it available at the moment. If eventually some can be relocated to the MSB, then no problem. But if you later on find out there are actually fewer brownfield site operators that can be relocated to MSBs, then for those who have to carry out their brownfield site operations in open-air settings, will you be able to save more costs? I don't want to see the situation in which you have already built an MSB, but then no stakeholders want to be relocated into these MSBs. Then the money will go down the drain. I want to make the project flexible. Thank you. Thank you, member. Thank you, member, for your suggestion regarding brownfield site operators. Indeed, for the affected brownfield site operators, some of them can be relocated to MSBs. However, some couldn't. They will have to stay in open-air settings to continue with their operation. In Yuen South NDA, we have set aside some industry land. Some are suitable for the construction of MSB, whereas some are suitable for open-air operations. Our long-term goal is that these brownfield site operators can be relocated to MSB, hence making the land more efficient. Therefore, we cannot set aside a lot of land for open-air operations, but of course, the quantity of such areas won't be more than those for the MSB. In relation to project estimates, do we have any breakdown? Just now, Mr. Chen already mentioned in his introduction for site formation, roadworks, how many of these or the cost of these projects. We will provide a detailed analysis in the Public Works Subcommittee. Just now, we only provided percentage points, but for details, we'll give members more information in the Public Works Subcommittee. Dr. Wendy Hong, I have compared the funding application for Yuen South NDA in 2022. I found that some figures have been adjusted. Phase 1, 63 hectares to right now 71 hectares. For public housing, 12,600 adjusted downwards to 11,450, a decrease of over 1,000 units. Is it because of the lowered plot ratio, hence the fall in the number of housing units? Shui Effluent polishing plant funding sought is $6.7 billion. I still remember the Shatin cavern work. The office responsible for projects managed to reduce the cost by 30% from $50 billion to $35.56 billion. I'd like to know whether the project in question has used the technology I just now mentioned. Will we be able to use the same technology in order to save costs? Thank you, Ms. Wendy Hong. I'll ask Mr. Mok to take the question in relation to water handling. Just now, Dr. Wendy Hong asked about the funding for phases 1 and 2. Indeed, there's a difference in size. Phase 1 smaller, 20-odd hectares. This time round, phase 2 about 70 hectares. In relation to public housing units, phase 1 about several thousand. Phase 2 about 11,000 to 12,000. more than phase 1. Site formation works in relation to public rental housing. We see more sites being formed. There will be more roads in phase 2 as compared with phase 1, and these roads aren't just confined to those within the NDA. For those on the periphery of NDA, say Yuen Highway or a handful of major roundabouts, there will also be improvement works. So they won't just benefit the NDA, they will also benefit the areas nearby. Well, I'm talking about phase 2 actually. When they sought funding for phase 1, they provided figures for phase 2. This time around, we see an increase in the size, whereas there are fewer public housing units. What is the reason behind this? For the entire Yuen South NDA, the number of public housing units is about 30,000 or so. For all housing units, about 70%, that is around 20,000 odd. And we are seeking funding for private housing units. We'll have to go back and check the figures again. But based on our own comparisons, the overall supply of public housing, phases 1 and 2 combined, I believe there are more housing units. But we can go back and check the figures again. Permanent Secretary, you can tell us once again public housing density in phases 1 and 2. Any difference? Can you supplement? When it comes to the public housing unit, the ratio won't decrease. They will be kept at around 5 to 6. Mr. Mok? Thank you. Different projects come with different ways to save costs. These are tailor-made. For the Sha Tin Cavern and water treatment facilities, they are similar in the sense that there will be intensive sewage treatment technologies. Then we can reduce the area of site use and we can also save costs. We'll be using cost-effective technologies in order to reduce the construction costs. Next, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you, Deputy Chair. I have 2 questions. Paragraph 6 of the paper shows a graph. Many were affected and had to be relocated. Are there any indigenous villages that we'll have to take special care of? Are there any special heritage sites that we'll have to preserve? For the amount of compensation, is it a ballpark figure? Is it your estimate? Or have you already finished finalizing the compensation amount? There are also livestock farms for chickens and for pigs, for instance. Will you allow them to be relocated to other places for continuous operation? Indeed, livestock farms for chicken and pigs are on the decrease. We need to take into account value for preservation. Regarding river training works or river revitalization works, it will be a residential area and there will also be river revitalization projects. Has the administration drawn reference from a project in Seoul, South Korea? It is very popular. I went there 2 decades ago and it was quite good. It could guard against flood and it could also ease the heat island effect. At the same time, it is a good tourist attraction as well. It hosts different mega events. Now we have the flood retention pond. We also have cycle track and so on. We can draw reference from the tourist attraction in Seoul in South Korea. Have you done so? Thank you.
5 questions. Permanent Secretary. I will ask Mr. Chen to talk about the impact on the monuments and on the river revitalization. Just now, Mr. Ma talked about pig and poultry farms. We're going to affect 2 pig and 1 chicken farms. We have talked to the farm owners. And the AFCD is now identifying site for multi-story buildings for farmers. And we've also talked to the farmers about the exgratia allowance that they're going to get. We're not going to cancel their license even after they've moved out. We'll work with AFCD to help these farmers relocate. Second, the member talked about the estimates that we have. That is $8.8 billion on ex gratia payment, or rather allowance. This is a estimate based on our calculation on the number of farmers that we have, including pig and chicken farms. This is the estimates that we have as at today. But the final amount will depend on the amount that we come up with when we actually resume the land. Thank you. Well, in the second phase development, there is no declared monument. Now on river revitalization, Mr. Ma asked if we have made reference to other countries in Asia, such as Seoul. We've actually made reference to Seoul of South Korea, and we also looked at Shenzhen in the mainland. They have a lot of great river revitalization project. We'll make use of our existing NOLA. We're going to revitalize it, and we're also going to make use of our flood retention pond to discharge the clear water into the river and to revitalize it. Now, in terms of landscape, we plan to plant more trees that will blossom in order to turn them into photo-taking spots. Mr. Ma asked about indigenous villages. Well, there is none. Next, Mr. Yu Pak-lan. Thank you, Chairman. My question is similar to that of Mr. Ma. Just now you talked about revitalization of NOLA. We can talk about an existing project that we have. That is the revitalization of Choi-Ming River. We had an opening ceremony very recently. And the sewage treatment plant was relocated to Cha Kwa Ling. This is a great example. In the past, we used to think that the sewage treatment works is an obnoxious facility, but now it's become a great place to view the sunset, and there is a playground there. We can barely smell any odor. Now we are here to talk about funding applications for Yunnan South NDA and Hongshui-Q Effluent Polishing Plant. I support it because these are the essential infrastructures for new territories. Now, regarding the effluent polishing plant, reclaimed water reservoir, sewage treatment works. How can we make use of these in order to elevate or enhance our leisure facilities? Say for water service reservoir, we usually have, say, soccer pitch on top or on the roof of these facility. For Yuen Nala, I barely see any water there usually. Now, you say that you are going to revitalize it, but where does the water come from? It would be the best if we can beautify and revitalize these Nala in order to offer a new place for people to go or turn them into a photo taking spot. That would be the best. But then, of course, we have to look at the concrete design in the future. But it would be better if you can give us your plan earlier. Now, the consultation for this project took place in 2022. Now we're in 2025. This term of the district councils took office after 2021. So when we have all of these new plannings, new facilities, are you going to consult the district council or rural committee again? Thank you. Permanent Secretary. Thank you. 3 questions. I will ask Mr. Chen to talk about the effluent polishing plant. He will talk about whether there are other functions to the plant and also where the water comes from in Yuen Nala. Now, we have talked to the rural committee and the district council regarding the project. 2 years ago, we have consulted them on this project. In the foreseeable future, we believe that we're going to consult them on the Yunlong South New Development Area Phase 2. Or Phase 3 rather, because we are still conducting study on it. When the study is completed, we will share with the Yunlong District Council about the result. Mr. Chan, thank you. At the rooftop of the effluent polishing plant, because of a single site multiple use principle that we adopt, we will see if we can revitalize the rooftop and turn it into an open space for the nearby residents. Now, on the point about the Yunlong Nala, it's true that during dry season, there is not much water in the Nala. In order to keep the water there, we're going to build a flood retention tank at the upstream area. During wet season, we're going to store the storm water at the upstream, and when there's no rain, then we're going to discharge the water to the Nala in order for the plants in the vicinity to grow better and attract more tourists. Thank you. Mrs. Regina Ip. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask about the Yunlong South NDA. Does the $14 billion include the cost for resumption? No, not included. I know that you're going to resume farms. Are you going to resume ponds, fish ponds, and have the objections been resolved? No fish pond is involved in Yunlong South NDA. We have squatters and brownfield operators there. We also have farms. Only 2 to 3 hectares are going to be affected by this phase. As mentioned, we have pig and chicken farms. the lands department is liaising with the affected households and business undertakings. We don't see a big problem here because in phase one, we have cleared some of the brownfield operators and squatter household. In phase one, 21 hectares of brownfield was involved, and we were able to clear all of them. I think that we need more time to talk to the operators, but we don't see a big problem here. I believe that the cost for land resumption will continue to drop because your rate will be adjusted every 6 months. Am I right? When are you going to seek funding for it? Or is it going to be dealt with in a block vote? Now, in terms of land resumption, each square feet, we are going to pay $1,000. We adjust this price once every 6 months. In April, in October, we announce the amount. Regarding the sites affected by the Yuen South NDA, we have an estimate on the ex gratia allowance for brownfield operators and farmers, and that's set out in paragraph 17. The amount is for $8.8 billion. So is it included in the block vote? Or are you going to come again to ask for funding? As mentioned by the member, is included in the block fund for public works project. Every year, we seek funding from the Finance Committee in one go. Next, Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the proposal on infrastructures in order to drive industrial and economic development, I support it, but I have a few questions. First, as mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, we have to move with the times. In Yuen South, we're going to build public rental housings mostly, and in phase 3, we're going to have private residential developments. So I hope that, well, in terms of infrastructures and planning, we need to ensure a sense of belonging of the residents. You should have regards to the living conditions of the people. Now, in terms of neighborhood harmony, we have to also consider it. How can we enhance it through the facilities in the vicinity, for example? Regarding the pumping station, the effluent polishing plant, I think that apart from single site, multiple use, we should also work on their appearance, because they are obnoxious facilities after all. I talked about this before. Now, on river revitalization project, I hope that you will step up control of water quality. Recently, there's been media reports saying that the revitalized river in Kai-Tak is poor in terms of its water quality. I'm concerned about river revitalization and the cost of constructing the facilities. Now, in enclosure 1, paragraph 30, it is said that $160 million are going to be used to dispose construction waste at public fill reception facilities and landfills. You should minimize the generation of inert and non-inert construction waste. So I have a few questions. First, you're going to dispose the waste at the public fuel reception facilities. Do these facilities still have capacity to receive these construction waste? Second, as you're going to form so many sites, is there any place for us to store the non-inert construction waste temporarily? Sorry, I mean inert construction waste, because non-inert construction waste should go to landfills. My last question. What happens when the capacity of the public fuel reception facilities are exhausted? If the construction waste have to be delivered to the mainland, what is the cost? As far as I understand, sometimes you deliver these construction waste to other places, such as the mainland. I wonder if the $160 million includes such a cost.
P.S. 4 questions in total. I will ask Mr. Benjamin Chan to talk about singles and multiple use, river quality, as well as the handling of construction waste. Regarding the first point made by member, we carry out planning and we want to build a community to which members of the public have a sense of belonging. So for phase 1 of site formation works, there are sites for schools. There are also GIC sites where there will be complexes for social welfare facilities as well as public healthcare facilities. These are community facilities. Mr. Benjamin Chan, thank you. We attach importance to the facades of buildings as well. We adopt no-frills design, including greening, as well as other aesthetic elements to blend with the surrounding on river revitalization as well as water quality in rivers. There is mountain water in Kongyamshan. We work with the DSD and the EPD to closely monitor any illegal act nearby. Mr. Che asked about water quality as well. The construction waste as well. We try our best to minimize the amount of construction waste generated. As there are other works underway, we will try to reuse the construction waste in order to minimize the discharge of such construction waste elsewhere. For the unit charge rate of $71 per ton for delivery, that's the rate required for delivery to public fuel reception facilities. Thank you. I also asked about public fuel reception facilities. Are they full in capacity? Most of the construction waste is non-inert construction waste. Thank you. We keep a close dialogue with staff members at the public fuel reception facilities. We'll make sure they have capacity to take more construction waste. For land that has not been developed yet, you can temporarily store waste in these areas so that we minimize the transportation of such construction waste. Thank you. We'll consider Mr. Dongniche's suggestion. Thank you. This is a good suggestion. Next, Mr. Frankie Yek, 4 minutes. Questions and answers included. Thank you, Chairman. I am supportive of the infrastructure facilities in the papers today. I thank Mr. Holden Chow for caring so much about the brownfield site operations in new territories. P.S. Your response focused on the perspective of planning. You think about land use efficiency. Are the sites good looking? Well, if we need to enhance the effectiveness of such sites, you might as well build a 30-story high MSB. Then, and it's easy for traffic accidents to happen if such is implemented. Brownfield site operations include prefabricated construction units, storage of construction machines, metal, non-metal, and so on. These require open space settings for storage. So from the perspective of planning, now not everything is carved in stone, then you need to allow more of such open air settings. Not all spaces are suitable for all industries. If you are sticking to this way, you are stifling the development of some industries, and this will do no harm, and this will do no good but only harm to the development of Hong Kong. P.S. Thank you. We've heard members' view. We'll try to strike a balance in this connection. We resumed land. It's not easy. We want to make good use of such land. But at the same time, we agree that we need to keep some brownfield site operations, and they are not suitable to be relocated to MSB. In future planning, we hope that we can strike a good balance, and we'll work hard on achieving this balance. Thank you, Mr. Michael Tin. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding Yuen South, I have one main concern, that is transportation. In the southern part of Yuen South, there's a mountain. Population of 40,000 and 100,000, they will have to take the 2-mile line to go to the urban area. That is southbound traffic. With 300,000 population in Hung Shui Kiu and Yuen South, when they get on a vehicle southbound, they will have to wait for 3 to 4 vehicles, 3 to 4 trains before they can get on the train. Well, there's a new link from Hung Shui Kiu to Hong Kong Island. We Roundtable asked for it. The government promised that it would be commissioned by 2037. But the $100 billion of Northern Link requires financing, so it hasn't yet been submitted to the Executive Council yet. So what about the link I just mentioned? I believe it will have to be delayed until 2040. When the administration couldn't give me the timetable for the link, it'd be difficult for me to support any development in question. I understand you don't have such a timetable today, but in the Public Works Subcommittee or in the Finance Committee, I hope that you will be able to provide us with this timetable. At least residents will have to know for how long they would need to go to the urban area. Thank you. P.S. Thank you, member, for your view. We agree with member for the Cao Yi Chao strategic link, railway link, if it can be further connected to Hung Shui Kiu. For the railway network to be connected to Hong Kong Island, the railway network will be more complete. It takes a circular shape, but in fact, we have a lot of railway projects in the pipeline. We'll have to set the record. We'll have to set the priorities right. If we need to take forward the Northern Metropolis, the Northern Link will receive priority. But I've heard members' view. I understand member would like to see the implementation timetable. We'll bear it in mind. When we carry out planning, we'll seriously consider it. Thank you. Thank you, PS. Now my turn. Once again, I'd like to restate question put forward by members. We need to develop the Northern Metropolis. Some land will have new land purposes or land uses. In the course of resuming brownfield sites, how should we handle the economic activities that take place on brownfield sites? How can we allow them to continue? This is a very important question. Industry-led industry-driven and infrastructure-led. For the logistics industry, environmental protection industry, their operations take place on open-air land. If you have to resume such land, even if the industry is going to spend money, many would want to see the economic activities being sustained. Even if the employer is not going to earn any money, employees still need to be paid. Don't tell them how optimistic they should be. In the meantime, they need to make both ends meet. They need to earn a living. I understand the Development Bureau is working very hard to look for land which allows them to continue with their brownfield operations. I understand this is not an ideal answer. Many issues remain unsolved. I hope you will maintain a close dialogue with brownfield site operators. You need to know what difficulties they face. You need to know their preferences. Do they want to go to MSBs or do they want to stay in open-air settings? You need to talk to them. As members members don't object to your funding proposal in relation to Yuen South NDA. This is just a small area on the entire parcel of land. Hongshui Kiu Ha Chun, Tin Shui Wai New Town, Chin Pei Choi, Park Nai, La Fao Shan. All these form a large area of land. Apart from residential area, industry land, there's much of it. Your direction is correct. Industry-driven, that is the vision. If we can use industry to bring in jobs, this is very important. So residents don't have to travel far away to go to work. Phase 2 development, 71 hectares of land, just a small area of the entire parcel of land. But you will be able to provide a lot of jobs. In relation to planning, engineering works, industry-driven, infrastructure-led. For new industries, how can you attract enterprises as well as enterprises that may be under the portfolio of another bureau, but it is very important.
Thank you, Chairman. We'd like to answer your second question. You are correct. The difference between our planning for the Northern Metropolis and other districts is that we want to adopt an industry-led approach in the Northern Metropolis. how can we attract enterprises to set up presence in the northern metropolis in order to fulfill our goal? That's the question. Now, in the Yunnan South NDA, we're going to have many residential developments, and next to it, in Hongshui-Q, we're going to have many industrial lands. We have commercial sites, port backup sites, industrial lots, and we also have technology parks. And we also have a pilot zone with residential and industrial developments. We want to attract enterprises and developers to the zone, and hopefully they will bring along companies with industrial background to set up the presence here. By that, hopefully we can drive industrial and economic development. So where we want to adopt this approach, that is the industry-led approach to attract enterprises and capital. When we have sites available, we want to encourage enterprises that can drive a Hong Kong business here. Through different means, we want to make more land available and attract more enterprises here. Thank you, Permanent Secretary. Members, if you have no other questions, I need to seek your views. Do we support the administration submitting the proposal to the PWSC for consideration? Throughout the meeting, I don't hear anyone objecting to the proposal because this is an important part of the Northern Metropolis. Anyone who objects to the proposal? If not, I propose that we submit the project to the PWSC. That concludes our discussion of this item. Now we move on to the next one. That is proposed retention of one-time limited supernumerary administrative officer staff grade CD2 post in the Development Bureau Planning and Lands Branch to support planning and land use initiatives. The relevant paper have been tabled. Would the relevant government officials please enter the room?
咁啊，同事咧想提問。
Members, if you would like to put questions, please press the request to speak button.
咁啊，暫時咧有睇到有陳
Ms. Chan Yuen-Ming, Dr. Teck Chi Yuen, Mr. Tony Che, and Dr. Wendy Hong have pressed the button to speak. Again, Permanent Secretary, please give us a presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. In this item, we'd like to seek members' view on the proposed retention of one time-limited director post at the rank of AO in the Development Bureau. The post will lapse by the 1st of April this year. This is a time-limited post, so we hope that the members will support our proposal to retain the position for another 3 years. The job duties of this post holder is similar to the items that we just discussed. This officer will be responsible for planning economic sites and relevant reviews. I'm sure you have heard about Long Ku Tan and Tuen Mun West planning and the reclamation of Long Ku Tan. These projects will make available new industrial sites near the airport. This officer will also coordinate the resumption of brownfield sites in the northern metropolis. They will coordinate with different departments to offer assistance and services to the affected brownfield operator. For details, I will ask Mr. Gary Poon, Deputy Secretary, to explain more about it in details. Thank you. Mr. Poon. Thank you. We propose to retain a one-time limited supernumerary director post at the rank of AO, Staff Grade C, in the Development Bureau for a period of 3 years up to 31st of March 2028. This post holder will be responsible to help strive to make available more industry sites. This post was created in 2018, and in 2023, we have the approval from the FC to renew it, and the post will lapse by the end of March 2025. The post holder have completed a series of duties. Let me give you some examples. The post holder have completed a legislative exercise leading to enactment of the Development Town Planning Lands and Works Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance 2023. We streamlined 6 statutory procedures, thereby expediting the supply of developable land. Different development projects have been benefited, including the Northern Metropolis. The Permanent Secretary also talked about the Lung Ku Tan reclamation and replanning of Tuen Mun West. In 2023, we have the funding approval from the FC to carry out these projects, and they're in progress. This post holder will also coordinate support services for displaced brownfield operators. And lastly, the post holder have completed a review of the revitalization scheme for industrial buildings, leading to extension of an array of measures thereunder to end 2027 as announced in the 2024 policy address. Although the workload of this post holder is heavy, the post will lapse by the end of March 2025. I hope that the members will support us submitting the proposal to the ESC so that we can retain the post for another 3 years until the 31st of March 2028. While this post holder will carry out various duties and responsibilities, I will highlight a few of them. First, on the planning and engineering study for Lung Ku Tan reclamation and the replanning of Tuen Mun West area. In the coming 3 years, this will be the main duty of the post holder. He or she will oversee the planning and engineering study for Lung Ku Tan reclamation and the replanning of Tuen Mun West area and subsequent follow-up actions. Development Bureau will have to participate heavily in these 2 projects. We're talking about 300 hectares of sites with potential development or development potential, and it will make available a lot of industrial sites. We'll introduce advanced technology, new energy and circular economy industries there. The planning and engineering study have commenced by the end of in end 2023, the progress is satisfactory. But in the coming few years, we still have to follow up on some of it. And in mid-2025, we're going to organize a public consultation exercise to consult the relevant stakeholders and the LegCo about the land uses. We also need to comply with some of the statutory procedures, and we will conduct necessary technical assessment so that we can rehouse the business undertakings that are going to be affected. The second main duty is to support displaced brownfield operators who wish to relocate their business. From 2019 till today, we have resumed 30 hectares of brownfield sites, and by 2026, we are going to resume another 230 hectares, mainly within Northern Metropolis, to take forward various housing and other development projects. Now, we adopt this providing monetary compensation in parallel with facilitation service approach to assist displaced brownfield operators. In 2023, we have amended relevant guidelines of the Town Planning Board, with the resultant policy effect of making available more land, mostly private lots, for application for temporary use by brownfield operators. In April 2023, we have established an office to identify sites to relocate the brownfield operators and provide one-stop advisory and case management services. We have a DPFO for it, and the post holder oversees the lands department in identifying suitable government sites for letting by way of short-term tenancy through restricted tender to brownfield operators affected. In 2024, we're going to build 2 MSBs for affected brownfield operators. These duties have to be continued to be carried out in the Development Bureau. Under the leadership of this post holder, we are trying to identify more land so that we can lease more government land for brownfield operators. We focused our site identification efforts in government lands that have no long-term planning yet. We have worked with the Planning Department, Lands Department, and the CEDD, and we have identified around 120 hectares of government land that may be available for use over the next 6 years. To enable such sites to be made available for use in a timely manner, the post holder have to carry out a lot of duties. They have to work with different departments. They will arrange in batches restricted tenders whereby only affected brownfield operators can bid for the identified sites. With the first such tender in the latter half of 2025, the post holder will also need to formulate a centralized, streamlined arrangement for government to take the planning applications to TPB in batches for site requiring planning approval. With the first batch of applications to be submitted in the later half of 2025, we're going to refine the restricted tendering arrangement to target the identified sites to help brownfield operations. As mentioned, MSB is another of our major focus. We have tendered for 2 sites in Yuen and Hongshui Ha-Chun. We want to promote the development of industries, and we want to consolidate brownfield operations displaced by government projects in a land-efficient manner and assist them in upgrading their operations. We use a 2-envelope approach. So after receiving the tenders, we have to assess the tenders. That's why we need to keep this post holder. This post holder will oversee and steer the tender assessment work. As for how the MSB floor place is going to be allocated to different displaced brownfield operators and the rents to be charged, the post holder will be responsible for mapping out the strategies for these. The post holder will also need to keep under review land use planning for industry sites in the northern metropolis. In the coming 3 years, this post holder will take on the new responsibility of keeping under the review the land use planning and other major areas in collaboration with the planning department to make sure that the land use planning remains relevant to Hong Kong and stay competitive amidst the evolving needs of a fast-changing world. The post holder will also oversee the revitalization of industrial buildings. As mentioned, some of the measures in the 2024 policy address is going to be extended to until December 2027. We will see if we will continue to extend the revitalization scheme for industrial buildings. The last area of the duties of this post holder is to oversee the funding scheme to support the use of vacant government sites by non-government organizations. In July 2024, we obtained the FEC approval for an increase in funding commitment from $1 billion to $1.5 billion. so as to provide more targeted support to NGOs and putting vacant government sites to gainful use, and so that we can receive more new applications. Most of the applicants are NGO, and they need our coordination support. We have a consultant project team to support them. The post holder will continue to oversee the project. So much for our presentation.
提問
I now open the floor for members to ask questions. Ms. Chen Yutming, 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I agree. Well, I support the retention of this position. 1. It oversees the development of the Northern Metropolis. For the new industry layout, logistics, recycling, foodstuffs, and so on. The Northern Metropolis focuses on I&T. So in the coming 3 years, the post holder will continue to strengthen the layout of the industry land as well as the new quality productive forces. The relevant post is also responsible for taking forward Tuen Mun West and Long Ku Tan. These areas are near Hong Shui Kiu. I believe it will align with the development of Hong Shui Kiu Ha Chun. Quite many of such works are closely related to the Northern Metropolis. So what is its relationship with the Northern Metropolis office? Why shouldn't these projects be under the purview of the NMCO? Next, I understand this position is also about livestock farms. I understand we need to maintain the supply of livestock, but the modernization facilities aren't enough. There is illegal discharge which affects the nearby villages. I expect the post holder will liaise with the Environment and Ecology Bureau. Stench should be minimized. Discharge should also be minimized. Thank you, member, for your support. 3 questions. The first question: we want to give this post a new function. We want to review its function with the development of the Northern Metropolis. In the last discussion item, Hong Shui Kiu, it is a project that started a few years ago. Do we need to keep stock of the project? Yes, I agree. We need to review the project to make sure the project aligns with the future development of Hong Kong. Member also mentioned New Territories North. We are conducting consultation. It is our first time to propose that industry land should be set aside for logistics, foodstuffs, green industries, and so on. In public consultation sessions, we'll consider the views collected from the public. We'll use them to improve the land for industry or for industrial use. Member also mentioned Long Ku Tan and Tuen Mun West land use. Why are they under this post holder instead of the NMCO? Well, actually, Long Ku Tan and Tuen Mun West are within the purview of the NMCO, whereas for Tuen Mun West, the development is a very important project. The newly reclaimed site will exceed 300 hectares, and we do want to enable this piece of land to help with the development of industry in Hong Kong. We need one dedicated officer to be responsible for this. Geographically, it is not within the North Metropolis, but having said that, well, I have to say that these two positions need to collaborate with one another. Moving north from Lung Kwu Town, in close proximity, you will arrive at Lung Kwu Town, Ha Pak Nai. So these two officers will have to work with each other. Regarding livestock farms, what are the arrangements for moving into MSB? The Development Bureau is responsible for land. Which land is suitable for the construction of MSB, site formation works, infrastructural works? After we have completed procedures on our end, we'll hand them over to the EEB. How much livestock farms should be built? Financing arrangements with stakeholders, the EEB will discuss it with them. Next, Dr. Chi Yuen. Thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of this panel. I can't vote, but I'd like to voice my objection against this item. I appreciate the courage of the Development Bureau. The Development Bureau is asking for the Legislative Council to approve the proposed retention of a post. We are having a fiscal deficit. We need to cut back on education spending and so on. The Financial Secretary asked us to tide over the difficulties together. While you're asking for the retention of one post, so how are we tiding over difficulties at the same time? Frontline nurses, frontline doctors are having a heavy burden. There aren't any new resources given to us. But then you are asking for proposed retention of one post. Is it equal treatment? $2 scheme is the talk of the town. There are different alternatives, 80%, 20%, different proposals. Is the government spending money on your own resources, but then you are cutting back on our spending? Dr. Tick, you are not a member of the panel on development, but I still allow you to speak. So I hope you to provide constructive opinions on this matter. In relation to fiscal deficit and so on, well, the permanent secretary cannot give you an answer. Now we are talking about the proposed retention of one-time limited supernumerary administrative officer staff grade C post. The PS is telling you what this post holder will be doing, and these duties haven't been completed yet. The secretary is telling you what this post holder is responsible for and what he or she is doing. If this post is not needed, what about these tasks? They haven't been completed yet. Well, if your comments had been more constructive, probably the PS could have given you an answer. Otherwise, she's not in a position to give you any answer. Well, let me ask you a constructive question. PS, will you take back your proposal? Well, I will ask the PS to answer you. Well, I can't force you if you have no more constructive questions to ask. Thank you, Chairman. I've heard members' question. Well, we're asking for the proposed retention of this post for 3 years. Within the government, we needed to bid the resources. The officer responsible for financial resources is of the view that we do need to keep this position. As Chairman said, a lot of projects haven't been completed yet. We need to continue to work on these projects. We need to do them better. This post holder has a very intricate link with different posts. For the rehousing of brownfield site operators, this post holder plays a very important facilitating role. Members oftentimes remind us if we are to develop the Northern Metropolis, the pace will be affected. We have also conducted a review. A lot of the duties must be continued. We have also reviewed the workload of different officers in the Development Bureau. No one is able to take up these tasks. The mechanism is very competitive, and then we are given the resources to retain this post for 3 years. That's exactly why we have come to the Council to ask members to support our proposal. Just now, I've already told members what this post holder will do and is doing. At the end of the day, we'll have to go to the Establishment Subcommittee and the Finance Committee before we know whether this post could be retained. Mr. Tony Tse. Well, I won't object to any establishment proposal if there are new initiatives. In relation to the proposed retention for this post for another 3 years, I hope that the government will provide more information. From 2018, this post already started. In the interim, for a period of 10 months, it lapsed. I believe with the extension of 3 more years, this post holder will be existent for over 10 years or close to 10 years. I understand the latest duties might have been different from your initial projections. This post holder formulates policies, and I believe there are policies that have been formulated. And we're confident in the coming 3 years, this post holder will be responsible for projects that we are confident about. Coordination and supervision are mentioned. A lot of government projects straddle different policy bureaus. If steering and supervision are a must from a macro perspective, not just for this position, well, is it the case that the more departments are involved, the more difficult it is to conduct supervision and coordination? I hope that the administration will provide explanations. Is it true? Is it a must for all projects? Next, for some projects, say Longkou Tan Reclamation, Tumun West Area Study, as I understand, it's been over a year. $100 million or so have been spent on the studies. What is the progress? What is the function of this post? Some works should be conducted by departments instead of the Bureau. 300 hectares of land, Longkou Tan and Tumun West. Well, does it mean that the officers concerned will have less to do? The 300 hectares of land have already been handled. Does it mean that these officers will have a lighter burden? They are not as busy? Well, I think the administration should explain to us. Otherwise, it may be deemed duplication of resources. There are a lot of officers, but then the work burden hasn't been eased.
議員三個問
3 questions. First, the member asked us to supplement with further information after the meeting on the achievements of this post holder since 2018. We can give you such information later on over the past 2 years. One of the key focuses of this post holder was the Development, Town Planning, Lands and Works Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance 2023. This post holder coordinated this large-scale legislative exercise, which streamlined various development-related statutory procedures. They did not only have to coordinate different teams in the Development Bureau, but they also have to work with various departments and other bureaus as well. We always talk about the coordination and steering work of this post holder. Do we have to really create a position to mainly focus on steering and coordinating? Most of the development projects cannot be dealt with within the Development Bureau. When we have to set aside, say, INT land, we have to work with the ICIB. For logistics sites, we also have to work with other bureaus or departments to look at the area of sites to be reserved. And we have to look into the policy goals of setting such land use. According to our experience, Development Bureau colleagues must participate in various policy formulation. Sometimes the department have fulfilled their duties, and sometimes some of the problems cannot be dealt with, and the Bureau will then step in to resolve the problem and give steering direction. Now, the member also asked about Longkou Town reclamation and the Two Moon West replanning. The study has been ongoing since end 2023. Hopefully, by mid-2025, we can consult the relevant stakeholders and launch a public engagement exercise. And then we have to go through environmental impact assessment and rezone some of the sites. As mentioned in the paper, this post holder will be expected to take up these responsibilities. Now, for Longkou Town reclamation, the post holder will also look into whether we can advance the reclamation so that we can make available land earlier and solve the problem with the brownfield operators so that we can have more open air industrial sites. Chairman, paragraph 5 to 20 are about the justifications for the retention of this position. In paragraph 19, it is said that the post holder will oversee the funding scheme to support the use of vacant government sites by NGOs. I think that apart from the Bureau, the departments should also work on it. If we have this post, then should we, say, reduce the manpower in some of the departments? When we have the policy, we just have to follow up on it. Now, the Bureau is taking up the responsibility of carrying out this funding scheme. I think that the Bureau should be responsible for policy formulation, and the departments should be the ones to implement the policies formulated. Thank you. I think the members' view is clear. I think that for the projects in the paper, the policies for them have been formulated and decided. So do we need to set aside extra resources to steer these projects, or should we just ask the departments to implement these schemes and projects? Thank you. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I agree with what Mr. Tony Che said. According to the paper on the retention of this post, I find it hard to support it. One of the functions of this post holder is to oversee the planning and engineering study for Longkutan reclamation and the replanning of Tumun West area. The CEDD in 2014 proposed these two projects, and in 2019 it was resubmitted for approval, and the projects have been delayed for some 10 years. After the study has been completed in 2026, we will implement the projects. Now, the administration is proposing to extend this position for another 3 years, but these two projects will not be completed within 3 years. We have 170,000 civil servants, not including NCSC or other outsourced workers. If we just look at civil servants, for every 100 residents, we have 2.2 civil servants, which is higher than that of Singapore, which amount to 1.42. Our ratio of civil servants is 61% higher. I think that we have to enhance administrative efficiency. And I think that there is room for us to reduce the number of civil servants that we have. If we have so many civil servants, we won't be motivated to boost our efficiency. I hope that we can learn from the mainland and redeploy the civil servants in the establishment to take up the responsibilities. Thank you. We note the members' view. You talked about the Longkutan reclamation and the replanning of Tumun West area. I'd like to take this opportunity to respond to your point about whether the departments should be responsible for implementing the projects, such as that of MSB. We use now a two-envelope approach these days, but this is a new approach, and the policy elements involved is substantial. Now, when this approach is being implemented effectively over the long term, then we can ask the departments to take the lead. But for the planning and engineering study for Longkutan reclamation, replanning of Tumun West, and the tenders for MSB, we're still working on the policies. We need the Policy Bureau to take the lead in resolving the issues that may arise in adopting the two-envelope system or approach. But having reviewed our workload in the coming 3 years, we do need this post holder to implement the projects and schemes that we have set out in the paper. We're still testing some things out, and adjustment is needed sometimes, and we need this post holder to solve it. What about what happens after 3 years? Well, we agree that we do have some long-term responsibilities and duties that need to be taken up, but we have had the agreement of the financial control colleagues for the 3-year resources. That's why we come to the LegCo to seek your approval. Well, there are still a few members who like to speak. I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes first. No objection. Next, Mr. Gary Chang. Thank you, Chairman. I have a few questions regarding this application. As mentioned in the paper, the progress for the engineering study for Long Kou Tan reclamation is satisfactory, and we're in the public consultation stage. Afterwards, we're going to conduct technical assessment. I think that the professional department should take the lead. Now, in the project, what kind of risk and challenges do we foresee that we need a directorate post holder to steer or oversee it? Second, according to the main duties and responsibilities of the post holder, they are mostly have to do with overseeing, steering, so on and so forth. But that has nothing to do with KPI. For KPI, we should talk about, say, how many people you're going to reach out to, how many sites we're going to reclaim or resume. I don't think that overseeing, steering, keeping under review are KPIs. One major duties of this post holder is to steer this tender assessment work for MSBs. For the MSBs in Yuen, if I remember correctly, it was out for tender early last year, and then it was postponed to the end of last year, and now it has been further delayed to the end of March this year. And it is said that this Yuen MSB is one of the responsibilities of this post holder. Now, the reason why we need to extend the position is because the tender for the Yuen MSB has been delayed. I have reservation about this. These are my doubts, but there are also merits to this position. It is said that the post holder will work on the industry development in the northern metropolis. This is one of the weaknesses in our planning for the NM. Under the NMCO, there is not a function of, say, land planning. And now I see that the post holder will take up this responsibility. I support it, but now there is a structural problem. Now, if we talk about support for brownfield operators, they're mostly in the northern metropolis, and they will be relocated to other sites within also the northern metropolis. Why can't we have this position under the Northern Metropolis Coordination Office so that we can justify this position? We should focus our resources in the Northern Metropolis, given our tight budget. Permanent Secretary, the members have a few comments. First, he talked about the study for Long Kou Tan and Two Moon West. Why does this post holder have to be involved? Because the land use proposal is about to be published. Now, this land use proposal is now up for public consultation. After the consultation, we still need to adjust the proposal. Now, technical assessment is carried out by the technical departments, but when issues arise, we need to intervene as a policy bureau. After the technical assessment is completed, with our limited resources these days, the post holder will look at whether we should accord priority to any parts of the project. As mentioned, for reclamations that are easier, we are trying to advance it. And that's why we need this post holder to coordinate with different departments and to collect views from them. Now, in terms of KPI, we will look at it after the meeting so that we can refine our paper submitted to the establishment subcommittee. Third, you talked about the multi-story buildings for modern industries. As is already out for tender, you said that we don't need to extend the position. For Yuen site, we have delayed the tender deadline, and now we're pushing for this Shui MSB. Well, actually, before we rolled this Shui MSB out, we collected views from the market, and we have actually amended the conditions of the tender. For Yuen MSB, we asked the developers to give us 30% of the floor space. Now for the MSB in Shui, as it's larger, we adjust the percentage to 20%. And the plot ratio for Shui MSB is 7. Do we need such a high plot ratio for industrial or logistics sites? Well, we have collected views from the stakeholders, and before the tender was out, we have lowered the plot ratio as a result. These are the duties that we have carried out behind the scene. When we roll out any project, we have to consult the stakeholders and monitor the market. We need this colleague to help us out in this regard. Lastly, you talked about the review of industrial sites. That's what we're working on. For 3,000 hectares of new sites in the Northern Metropolis, 700 hectares of them are new industrial sites. This is a fast-changing world. The Development Bureau wants to have this discipline of reviewing whether the industrial sites that we have can move with the time. And I think that this colleague is very important in this regard. Lastly, you ask why don't we let the NMCO to work on the displaced brownfield operators. Well, first of all, NMCO workload is very heavy already. Second, the post holder mostly work on economic and industrial sites. In order for us to help the displaced brownfield operators on the upstreams and downstream, we need to have this post holder work on it.
田北辰議員。
Mr. Michael Tin. Thank you, Chairman. We are having a fiscal deficit of $100 billion. That's why we must tread with caution when it comes to any establishment proposal. About $12 million per year for this time-limited supernumerary position. On the one hand, we are talking about cutting back on spending. We need to invest in our future. If we don't invest in future, then there will be even more difficulties in the future. Now there are hundreds of billions of dollars of railway networks. The Northern Link, the works for the Northern Link haven't started yet. A lot of projects are on hold because of funding. Just Ngau Tame alone, you need to have a new hospital, and then you need new officers. You need new officers to run the hospital and to oversee the project. I understand all the projects investing in our future are within your purview. I understand a lot of your officers are snowed under. I feel for you. We're talking about Longkutan project today, but we're worried that 3 years later, these projects will be carried over for yet another 3 years again. I've read your report. I support the retention of this post for 3 years to kickstart the projects. It is indeed not that easy for you to redeploy your manpower resources, but after that, I really think that shouldn't be further extended. Tumun Pier Samsung to be connected to Island West. That is the new link connecting between new territories and Hong Kong Island. I have already mentioned that railway network just now. At least 12 years, I'd say. It may be as long as 15 years. We definitely need a railway. I understand that. Does this position have anything to do with the railway? I understand this is under the purview of the Transport and Logistics Bureau, but I believe you do have liaison with the TLB. Do you have anything to say in relation to this? Mr. Michael Tin, if I understand correctly, the railway you mentioned stretches between Lantau, Tuen Mun, Hong Shui Kiu. Is that the one you refer to? No. What I mean is that for the previous term of the government, 2017, they promised me from Tuen Mun Pier, Gold Coast, Siu Lam, and then to Hong Kong Island through Kao Yi Chau. This term of the government changed it to from Hong Shui Kiu to Siu Lam directly. Back then, I had strong reactions. I said that over my dead body. You couldn't do so at the expense of 500,000 residents in Yuen Long. You already promised me back then. The secretary at that time said, well, you need not worry. This railway provides alternate services to Hong Shui Kiu and Tuen Mun Pier. For the train to, the residents do not have to get onto the same trains. Long Ku Tan, Tuen Mun Pier. Well, P.S. Does your post oversee this project as well? Well, 2 years ago, we came to the panel on development to introduce the Tuen Mun West and Long Ku Tan study. That railway network extends westwards. Is that correct? Well, the last term of the government said from Tuen Mun Pier, moving eastwards. Well, however, this term of the government changed it to Hong Shui Kiu and then directly to Siu Lam. I said, no, you had already promised it, and then the then secretary said that we would do it. Long Ku Tan and the terminal is in Tuen Mun Pier. Well, please give some time the PS to answer your question. Yes, indeed, in the study of Long Ku Tan Tuen Mun West, we consider what you mentioned as well. This has a lot to do with the positioning of Long Ku Tan. If you need a branch line or a spur line, we'll have to consider other factors as well. At the end of this year, when we provide the land use, you will understand that. Well, your study needs to include railways. It's a must. Well, Mr. Michael Tin, your position is very clear. I understand that. Of course, that would concern another bureau. The PS cannot give you undertaking right now. If she fails to honor her promise, then you will object to her as well. Well, I don't mean to argue with you, but some members ask for as long as 7 minutes or 8 minutes. But I'll be quick, Chairman. My impression is even if an extension rail could not be supported, this Tuen Mun to Siu Lam railway is still within the project. That's why I want to ask whether your project covers the railway starting from Two Moon Pier. Well, I'd like to know whether this project or this item is under your purview as well. Well, Mr. Makutin, you should bring this question to the panel on transport. This is the panel on development. I already told you. The Development Bureau must have considered transportation factors. So they know the plan of the Transport and Logistics Bureau. If you still want to badger the PS about this question, well, she cannot give you any undertaking at the moment. Well, 8 minutes already. Your question is very clear. The PS already told you her position, her attitude. Well, she cannot be so specific, so concrete. Well, I do want to help you put your question. PS has already tried her very best to answer your question. You need to ask your question in the panel on transport. Next member, Mr. Louis Long. Thank you, Chairman. The Development Bureau's proposal to retain this one-time limited supernumerary position well, I don't know whether I should vote against or in favor of this proposal. I'm from the real estate sector, and of course, the more people, the better, of course. I have already read the arguments laid out in the paper. This post holder finished the legislative exercise in relation to Development, Town Planning, Lands and Works Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance 2023. Without the help of this post holder, it wouldn't be that easy to complete the enactment of the ordinance. It's all about delayering in public organizations, as we always say. We need to delayer the organizational structure in order to control costs. We need to keep our organizations flat. Have we considered such a possibility? In the organizational chart, below this Principal Assistant Secretary, there are a few assistant secretaries. Is it possible to flatten the organizational chart? Well, before the PS responds to you, I'd like to ask members. It's about 4:45. Mr. Edward Lau and myself would like to ask questions as well, and Mr. Gary Zhang want to speak in the second round. I'll draw a line here. Let me finish all the members before we wrap up the meeting. If members don't object, we will extend the meeting by 15 minutes. P.S. Thank you. Thank you, member. Thank you for your suggestion. Will the work be undertaken by other officers? Will the work be undertaken by the subordinates of this post holder? Well, we have reviewed the work nature of this post holder in the next 3 years. We believe this post requires a person with sufficient experience and leadership experience as well. The assistant secretaries are rather young. They may be competent, but then they are young. they don't have as much experience within the civil service. That's why I need a post holder who has experience within the government and also who has the leadership required to lead his or her team. This post holder even needs to explain the policies to the Legislative Council together with the team below. We need to solve problems. We need to put our heads together. So we do need an AOSGC post holder to take up these responsibilities. Thank you.
呢個職
Dr. Lo Wai-kwok. Well, it's my turn. According to the achievements of this post holder set out in the paper, it is said that, well, in the paper, that the post holder have completed the legislative exercise leading to the enactment of the Development, Town Planning, Lands and Works Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance, which streamlines various statutory procedures relating to town planning, land resumption, reclamation, roads, and railway works. Many of our members have participated in the amendment exercise. So it seems that this supernumerary post holder have had some achievements. But as some other members have said, for the policies that have already been formulated, do we still need the policy bureau to work on the projects, or should we let the relevant departments to take up the job? I do see that there are still some outstanding tasks, including the Lungku Town reclamation and replanning of Two Moon West, as well as their engineering study. I don't think that we can let the department handle the two projects. As for the support service for displaced brownfield operators, this is relevant to the last agenda item. And according to the members' comment, it seems that the problems have not been resolved. It seems that we cannot delegate the duties to the administrative departments. It seems that the Policy Bureau still have to work on it because it involves government land and also private lots. Can we remove barriers and make these sites available to support the brownfield operators so that they can continue to carry out their business? I don't think that the engineering and construction sectors objects to the retention of the post holder as long as they get the problem solved. Now, on the revitalization of industrial buildings, we've talked about this scheme for so many years, but even as of today, we still need a colleague in the Policy Bureau to work on it. I sympathize with you. The reason why members question the retention of the position is that they are discontent with the pace of development. But for the works that I just mentioned, we have to carry them out. The post holder have completed some of their duties, and there are still some outstanding ones. It seems that you will be in a very difficult position if we don't support your retention of the position. Now, eventually, we still have to decide on whether we should submit the proposal to the ESC for consideration. All I want to say is that we hope that we can have the administrative departments implement the projects as soon as possible. As for the ones that need a policy adjustment, we must work on it very soon. Thank you. Any response? Thank you, Chairman, for your comment. Now, regarding the revitalization of industrial building, there is a division of duties between the Bureau and the departments. We talk about redevelopment of industrial buildings, then the planning department is involved. For land lease amendments, then the planning department is involved. The scheme has been here since 2012, and we have improved the scheme regularly. And I think that it's time for us to review it to see if there is any new measures in order for us to actually revitalize more industrial buildings and help our industries transform and upgrade. This is one of the major focuses of this post holder in the future. There were members who asked for more information on the achievements of this post holder in the past. Please supplement after the meeting. Next, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you. I, in principle, support the retention of this post because, as a lot of members have said, we recognize the work of this post holder, especially the legislative amendments to development-related ordinance. I have taken part in a lot of events or activities relating to the Northern Metropolis, and I know that a lot of colleagues are burning out. For Mr. Manchow under the DPFO, I work with him very regularly. I know that they have to have meetings very often, and I met with the office 1 to 2 times every week. And on top of that, they have to meet with stakeholders. So I sympathize with them. As mentioned by the Permanent Secretary, we have to have a regular land use planning for the area. Now, from duties A to G, is set out in the PowerPoint slides. Is there room for adjustment? Apart from duties A to G, will the post holder take up new responsibilities? I know that the NMCO will work on the industrial parks, but will the post holder also work on it? Will they take up new responsibilities? Given the fiscal deficit, I think that we have to compress our expenditure, but however, we cannot ask the lands department to reduce their manpower because they are responsible for resuming land. Although they have contracted out some of the services, a lot of people ask me about the progress of their case and applications. The lands department colleagues can not only give out payment on a ex gratia allowance just according to the size of the sites. There are a lot of things to look into. So I support the retention of the position. I'd like to hear from the Permanent Secretary on whether we can ask the post holder to take up responsibilities that are not set out from A to G. Thank you. Thank you for your support. We review the duties and responsibilities of each and every colleague regularly. For duties A to G, as set out in the paper, are the key focuses of the post holder in the coming 3 years. If some of the projects are smooth and we can delegate it to administrative department, then our bureau will not insist on taking up the coordinating and steering role because we have a heavy workload. We will ask the PAS to work on duties that involve policy elements. If the Northern Metropolis development continue to be industry-led, the post holder will continue to shoulder a heavy workload. We not just only have to review the industrial land use and zoning, we have to ask the post holder to review also various land uses in the Northern Metropolis. There are things that we cannot foresee. We expect that there will be new responsibilities and duties to be taken up by the post holder. We believe that the PAS in question will be appropriate to take up the work of policy review. Now, Mr. Andrew Lam has pressed the button. And after he's put his question, then I will ask Mr. Gary Zhang to speak for the second round. And after they've spoken, I will conclude the meeting. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam, 4 minutes. Thank you. I don't really like the creation of new position given our fiscal deficit. But I think that I have to support the retention of this post. As the Permanent Secretary said time and again, industry-led approach. In reality, a lot of the civil servants are deployed to monitor and steer instead of maintaining the industrial development. The chairman and members, they're all concerned about the brownfield operation. It is a part of real economy. There's no way for us to get rid of brownfield operation because it supports various trades. The Northern Metropolis is a disaster in terms of the lack of land for brownfield operators or operation. I don't see anyone, apart from the post holder here in the Development Bureau, who has taken up such duty. I think that there is a need to retain this position. I think that industrial sites is something that has to do with town planning. I don't think that the planning department or lands department can take up the duties. And I don't think that AI can replace this post holder. If we can leverage on IT and replace this post, then I wouldn't support the retention of it. The reason why I support it is because I don't want to see inexperienced civil servants implementing the project instead of making decisions. My question is this: can the post holder actually work on solving the problems of land resumption and rehousing in the development of the Northern Metropolis? Permanent Secretary, thank you for your comment. In order for us to develop Northern Metropolis, there are problems with rehousing, land clearance. The Development Bureau will try our best. I hope that the members will support us. We need an appropriate, experienced colleague with good judgment to work on policy formulation. This post holder have still some outstanding tasks on Longkutan and Tumun West, for example. Looking forward, we need to review the industrial sites in the northern metropolis, and this is one of the key focuses of this post holder. The Development Bureau is not omnipotent, but in terms of land planning, we need to know the market. Otherwise, we would fail to even take the first step, let alone developing the industries. So we need this colleague, and I'm confident that with this colleague, we are able to resolve the problems in this area.
我頭先就話咧，到阿張欣宇
Well, just now I said that I would allow Mr. Gary Zhang to speak in the second round, then our discussion will come to a close. Now that Mr. Perrier has pressed a button, I will allow Mr. Gary Zhang to speak in the second round first, and then I will give Mr. Perrier 2 minutes. Mr. Gary Zhang, 3 minutes. Yes, I'll be quick. Overall, the government's direction is to cut back on the establishment of the civil service. Manpower resources are resources as well. Just now, the PS already mentioned this post holder focuses on the economy and the industry. These are very important, and these are exactly areas on which we need to improve. We are confident if these positions are within the Development Bureau. I understand you cannot make any change at this moment. When we are in favor of this project, this post and the NMCO are high on the agenda of the government. It is not the case that we don't want this post, but instead this post should be taken up by the NMCO. No, this is not the case. In the coming 3 years, what is important for this post holder is that he or she should support the development of the northern metropolis in relation to the economy as well as industry. This is exactly how we can make the most of the resources devoted to this post holder. That's how we can convince members of the public. Another expectation is on this post holder. This post holder shouldn't just be responsible for administrative duties. If the focus of this post holder is on economy and industry, then he or she should meet with the stakeholders and he or she should closely monitor the market. That's my comment. I hope that the administration will consider my suggestion. Any brief response? PS. Thank you. This post isn't under the NMCO because it has to do with the internal structure of the Development Bureau. The NMCO needs to take up different work. They have a busy portfolio. So we put this post holder under the Development Bureau because the Deputy Secretary, Mr. Pun, can carry out the work together with this post holder. We think this would be a better option. Actually, not just this post holder, but all colleagues need to be constantly learning. They need to know what the world is happening. They need to make further enhancements. Mr. Perrier. Thank you, Chairman. I've heard all members. I've also heard the explanations provided by the PS. I agree with the responsibilities from B to G. For D, Well, there are many policies in relation to the relevance of land use planning for industry sites in the Northern Metropolis in other major areas. For blue and green eco-circle or ecotourism, I hope there will be more manpower resources and if we ask one new officer to learn all the things about the NMCO, this will be a lot more difficult. That's no easy task. So having heard all members and the PS, I agree that this post should be extended. And we need to keep the recurrent expenditure lower. So for the blue-green ecotourism circle, how can we expedite the development and planning for this ecotourism circle in order to develop tourism? This is very important. Well, the PS has already heard you loud and clear. She's heard your support. All members who spoke on this item didn't object to this post. They didn't object to the retention of this post. All members pin high hopes on the government in relation to planning and development. In fact, the Development Bureau has been working very hard these few years. There were amendments to the ordinance, and we have already seen results. There was one member who wasn't part of the panel asked you whether you would not put forward this proposal. That is, whether you would withdraw this proposal. As I mentioned, members are waiting for your supplementary papers. I hope you can provide them as soon as possible. And I hope there will be clear KPIs, key performance indicators, say whether you can really help with the resumption of brownfield sites and then help operators with their livelihood. I'm also concerned about Longkutan reclamation. To Moon Trade River Terminal, can we turn it into an industrial park? If this post can be extended by 3 years, I hope there will be clear KPIs that you can provide to members. Thank you. We've finished the discussion of this agenda item. Well, we've had quite a long meeting today. AOB, any other business? There being no any other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you, members.